Hello and welcome to our review for the Roto Grip TNT. Quick note before we get started, if you like our jerseys, Rosdahl 10 gets 10% off at checkout at CoolWick.com. Head on over and browse the website, pick out your favorite design, let me know what that is in the comments below. I'll pick a couple winners to give jerseys to on release date for the TNT and the Eternity, which is February 17th. Starting with the tech, the TNT features the solid version of eTrax Plus. eTrax Plus Pearl, of course, was on the RSTX2. So the cover formula is a slightly stronger version of the cover from the Rubicon and Rubicon UC2, which is a medium strength cover. The new symmetric Torpex core features an internal ball that's right above the center of the core as a whole. That drops the RG to 2.47. It's a very low number, so the ball is going to roll very early and strong. The differential is 052, which is the same as the Rondure core from the Rubicon series and the Icon core from the Idol series. This creates plenty of flare, so it's basically your typical big, strong, symmetric core that's just beefed up a little. In addition, the core is virtually a carbon copy of the orbital core from Storm's Axiom line. It's got slightly different optics and a marginal amount more strength. Now, when the TNT was announced, it got everybody thinking original Idol replacement, but the cover stock that was on the Idol is Microtrax, which is on the Gem, and not eTrax, which is much weaker. If anything, the TNT on paper is a slightly stronger original Idol Pro, which also had eTrax, and which was longer, weaker, and sharper than the original Idol. Our test pattern is Chromium. It's a challenge pattern at just under a 7-to-1 ratio. It keeps you honest, but it's not too punishing. 42 feet and 25.5 mils, which is on the long side of medium for length and on the high end of medium volume. We're also at Royal Crest Lanes in Lawrence, Kansas, and they obviously got a bit of a facelift. The new masking units are super sharp. They got new gutters, new gutter caps, in addition to getting automatic bumpers. They always take amazing care of us when we go to film, so anytime you're in the area, stop and bowl and then get something to eat at the adjoining Wayne and Larry's. Now, to preface, the TNT is a split decision so far. It looks great for me and not so great for James. So be sure to watch both videos to get the whole story, because his was thrown out of box while I resurfaced and polished mine before I even drilled it. I separated the full review because there's a lot to talk about. We got another part for James coming later, and also because righties may not get anything out of watching me bowl, and lefties may not get anything out of watching him. But I also made this combo video for everybody that just wants the whole picture. Now let's take a look at the footage and see what all this nonsense means. Now, on the first couple shots, this is what burning up looks like. 2000 is a lot of surface, even on a medium strength cover, on a condition that's got decent volume and decent length. It looks like it starts to hook or is trying to hook and then just gives up. Then after a couple shots and a drop in speed from James, it does start to pick up a little. This is now what not hooking looks like. You can see it getting length and actually picking up, and then it just never gets any traction. Now, the difference between burning up and not hooking is realistically pretty difficult to see, but in this case, the ball got slimy after 4 or 5 shots like some of our React Gloss balls have been, so this was a pretty easy diagnosis. James continues to try to slow the ball down and roll it more, and while that helps, the cover being slick and slimy and impossible to get dry without using ball cleaner after every shot, it's just too much for even his rev rate to overcome. I have no idea what's going on with the box surfaces out of the factory right now. I thought it was just a React-Gloss problem, but apparently that's not the case. chuckles near the end. James punches through a 3-pin, bets he can do it again, and then throws a perfect shot to go right back through it. Now, you might ask, why continue to move in if the ball's already not hooking enough? But we do this in every review. We move to several different zones, and so all we're doing is just putting it through its paces. Now, for comparison, we're going to drop down to the Hype Solid, and the cover stock is VTC Solid, which is a step down from E-Trax Plus. It's like the difference between Reactor from Storm's Electrify Solid and R2S from the IQ Tour Solid. So VTC is, again, a step down from E-Trax Plus, but not a huge one. Now, the core, however, is a fair bit weaker. But on paper, it just looks like a straight step down, so we're going to take a look. Now, like James says on the first shot, it hooks. Now, everything just looks better here. Much better ball roll and shape. The general overall roll looks similar. The TNT, I think, is a little bit more tumbly, and the Hype Solid is a little bit more round. But they also share a somewhat archy look as well. Now, a zone left, the first one goes a little bit long and splashes, so he drops the speed a little. The second one pulls up nicely, and then on the third one, he moves another zone left, and it goes a little too long. Now, the overall strength of the Hype Solid starts to show up here. It just wants to go too long without a little extra help. The next couple shots, you can see that he deliberately slows down and gets a little softer from the same zone. That gives the ball a little bit more time to pick up and move. When either given more friction or more time to hook, it really doesn't resist the angle at all. It will cover boards if it has the opportunity or the proper circumstances. And just for fun to finish up, he gets in front of the ball return and gives it the big loop. Why not? First one splashes, the next one he rolls a little bit more and it drives through the 8-pin. It just shows the quality of the Hype Solid. I've said it several times, but the HP2 line really delivers quality time and time again. And especially as equipment prices continue to rise, you just can't look past this one. So back to the drawing board. If the TNT has issues, slimy cover or not, and the Hype Solid is a bit weak overall but looks fine, could the TNT just be full burning up? The core is extremely strong. 2000 grit's a lot of surface. It definitely burned up on the first couple shots. James has a huge rev rate, and while the cover isn't super strong, the layout isn't super strong, and there's plenty of volume and length on the lane, you know, maybe it's still just too much. Maybe it's just not having it. And to test this, we also had him throw his phase 2, also at 2000 grit. Now, the velocity core at a 248 RG and an 051 differential is virtually on top of the Torpex core from the TNT, but the TX16 solid cover is quite a bit stronger than E-Trax Plus. So for reference, think basically the original Idol versus the Idol Pro, the phase 2 being the Idol and the Idol Pro being the TNT. The layout is somewhat different, however. It's 4.5 inches on the pin, but it's also pinned down. Going pin down makes the ball a little bit longer and a little bit smoother, so it basically allows him to use a stronger, more continuous pin position without making the ball too early or too strong. Now, layout difference aside, if the TNT is actually burning up, the phase 2 with its stronger cover should burn up too, and realistically look even worse, so let's take a look. I think the first couple shots put that to rest. Now, the phase 2 is a fairly early and smooth ball, so while it's slow on the back end, it's still pulling up, it's still hitting and being continuous. It even looks like he might have room to ball up here. We'll also have a comparison to the Axiom in a separate video. Now another zone left, he's able to give it room and keep his speed up. And while he gets a messenger and a mixer, he had to slow the TNT down quite a bit to even get close to that. I think after watching this, we can pretty effectively rule out burning up at this point. Moving further inside and dropping his speed down, the Phase 2 just reinforces why it's one of the GOATs. It does all the right things in the right places, it's exceptionally versatile, and is one of those rare, strong balls that you can play straight or cover boards with. Now we're going to take a lane level look at all three from 3 different zones to get a more direct comparison. Now, while the TNT cooperated for just long enough to get the lane level shots, the first 2 looked great actually. It did slick back up quickly and wiggled on the last one. The Hype Solid would cover the boards, but it needed more help to do it, and the Phase 2 is just goated. We already know about that one. So at the moment for James, we just think that the TNT needs a resurface or a surface reset, so we're going to hit the pause button for right now and revisit it later once we get that taken care of. That's what fixed all the other balls we had the same issue with, whether it was the Nitro with 4K Fast or the Absolute and the Revenant with Reactogloss. Now, if it was an issue with the actual balls themselves, a surface change wouldn't help or fix anything. And this is even further reinforced by the fact that I resurfaced and polished mine before I even drilled it, and this one looks great. Plus, I think that between a couple early shots with the TNT and then the first couple when we went down to the lane level look, after it had been cleaned and had a chance to sit and dry off for a minute, there is definite potential. This is going to take a full resurface though, that's why we didn't just hit it with a pad and keep going. If you remember, I tried that with the Nitro, the Absolute, and the Revenant, and it didn't work. So it just needs some time on the machine to get a little bit deeper so that we can fully reset and rebuild it. Now, this is all an important part of the troubleshooting process. This is why I'm detailing it rather than just glossing over it. Because I'm sure that the opposite has happened. I'm sure that I've said that something's great and you've gone out and bought it and it just sucked for you. But the vast majority of the time, there's a solution. So I don't think that there's any reason to be scared of the ball, especially if you watch me throw this one. This is just extra information to help you get the most out of the ball or any other ball that you have any issues with. So now let's flip sides and take a look at mine. So before I even drilled mine, I took it down to 1,000 and then I shined it up with Storm Step 2 compound. Everything hooks at 2,000 grit, so these weaker to medium strength covers can look a lot stronger than they actually are at a lower or rougher grit surface. So I thought that polishing it would give us a little truer read on where this actually fits. Definitely a heavy rolling ball, but I wouldn't quite call it chuggy. It's got a strong roll and it revs well, but chuggy balls generally want to slow down faster, almost like they're trying to grind to a halt. This one really controls the lane well throughout and is extremely stable, but it's also somewhat clean and responsive, which makes it very readable and predictable. As I get to this deeper zone, it's on the verge of resisting the angle, but to be fair, these stronger symmetric cores aren't really built for covering boards. It takes a little slower speed and a little more roll to get it through the pins the right way, but it's just a really small adjustment to get the corner out. The consistency of the roll and reaction as I move in is really impressive. It reacts the same from straighter as it does from deeper. Ultimately, I was the most comfortable in the middle zone from about third arrow. I was a little too much ball from straighter and I needed to help it just a little bit too much from deeper. For a comparison, we're going to drop down to the Hype Solid. I of course did the same thing to the surface for an equal comparison. The cover stock is VTC Solid, which is a step down from eTrax Plus. It's like the difference between Reactor from Storm's Electrify Solid and R2S from the IQ Tour Solid. So VTC, again, is a step down from eTrax Plus, but not a huge one. The core, however, is a fair bit weaker. Now, I have mine drilled a little stronger, but not significantly, so let's take a look and see how they compare. Now, same story as the TNT from straighter, so I did move in pretty quickly. While the Hype Solid is the weaker ball, that also makes it more responsive. Because it's not using as much energy earlier, it has more to move down lane when it hits friction. Even from the third arrow zone, it's got plenty of pop. However, don't misinterpret this as it hooking more. Now remember how consistent the TNT was from left to right. It's stronger, so it's going to control the lane more. While the Hype Solid is boomy and looks really sexy, it's also been harder to control so far. As we get into the last zone, now we start to see the strength difference. The angle and oil volume finally caught up to the Hype Solid, and while it was pretty quick from straighter, it slowed down quite a bit in this final zone, so this is a great illustration of what strength actually means. The next comparison is the Idle Cosmos. Now, like I said in the opener, as soon as everybody saw the TNT, they instantly thought original Idle replacement. When the Idle Helios ended up not quite being that replacement, we then got the Idle Cosmos, which I think is actually pretty close. Cosmos features the Extreme Trax Pearl cover, which is even stronger than Microtrax that was on the Idle, and it's definitely a fair amount stronger than eTrax Plus that's on the TNT. The Icon core is a 249 RG and an 052 differential, so the RG of the Cosmos is a couple points higher, but the differential is the same as the Torpex and the TNT. The Cosmos comes out of the box as a straight 4000 grit, but just like I did for the Hype Solid, I adjusted the surface to match what I did with the TNT, so we're getting a fair comparison. So let's roll the tape. Cosmos isn't too different from the straighter zone, but if you remember with the first shot with the TNT, it went a little high and tripped out the 6, but the Cosmos digs in earlier and goes even higher. The next two shots really peel off the out of bounds area, and remember, this isn't a house shot. Now, when I was throwing the TNT, I felt like I could just kind of execute a normal shot. With the Cosmos, I really felt like I had to keep my speed up. The 7-pin that I left on the second shot was just straight up overthrown, and I still didn't feel comfortable here, so I just went ahead and moved in after that. Now from this last zone, I was still working to get it down the lane, but on this last shot, I finally got it dialed in. Now it's easier to feel than it is to see on video, but as we go to the lane level here in a second, it will get a little bit easier to see. But the Cosmos is definitely a fair amount stronger than the TNT. I have a full step up. Now we're gonna take a lane level look at all three from the three different zones for a quick comparison. This lane level view shows off the differences exceptionally well in both hook potential and shape. The Cosmos is obviously the earliest and strongest. The TNT is a step down from that, and I think the Hype Solid's even a step down from the TNT. Again, the consistency of the TNT is what really stands out to me. The lane control from front to back and left to right is just really impressive. The final verdict for me is that the TNT is a heavy rolling but very stable and controllable ball. It's in the perfect zone to be a daily driver in league or in play on a number of sport conditions in a number of situations. Now, I don't think it overlaps significantly with anything else in any of the three lines. I think it kind of rolls like a Zen Soul, but it's definitely a step down in cover strength. The ball roll the core creates really does remind me of a Zen. Now, outside of those, it's dropped down from the Idle Cosmos, the Phase 2, but it's a step up from something like a Wolverine Dark Moss, Phase 5, Revenant, etc. Now, I don't think that it replaces the Idle or the Idle Pro, though. It's definitely its own ball. It's quite a bit weaker than the Idle, and it's a completely different shape from the Idle Pro. Be sure to check out the video featuring James if you haven't seen that one yet. We also have a follow-up to that coming soon, in addition to several comparisons. Check out the description for a link to Bowler's Mart to get one of these pre-ordered or for any of your bowling needs. Remember to use my code Rosdahl10 for 10% off at checkout at CoolWick.com. Be sure to check out my memberships for plenty of early access and early content. Thanks to my outstanding members, thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.